Welcome to Canon Academy. In this video we are going to continue our journey into the psychology of Batman. So, let's start. Part 2, Trauma and Identity. 2.1 The Impact of Trauma. Analysis of Bruce Wayne's childhood trauma. Bruce Wayne's psychological landscape is profoundly shaped by the traumatic experience of witnessing his parents' murder in a violent mugging. This pivotal event, which occurs when he is just a child, serves as the catalyst for his transformation into Batman. The loss of Thomas and Martha Wayne instills in Bruce a profound sense of grief, fear, and anger, laying the groundwork for his future as a vigilante. 1. Immediate effects of trauma. The immediate aftermath of the murder is marked by acute grief and confusion. Bruce is left to grapple with feelings of abandonment and helplessness. The violent nature of the crime and its suddenness contribute to a fractured sense of security in the world. Research in trauma psychology indicates that children who experience such violence often struggle with profound feelings of isolation and betrayal. For Bruce, the very people who should have protected him were taken away in an act of senseless brutality. 2. Long-term psychological impact. As Bruce matures, the unresolved trauma manifests in various psychological symptoms. Studies show that individuals who endure early trauma are at increased risk for developing PTSD. Symptoms may include intrusive memories, nightmares, hyperarousal, and emotional numbing. Bruce's inability to process the trauma leads to his lifelong struggle with feelings of guilt and responsibility. He internalizes the belief that he could have prevented his parents' death, fueling a relentless drive to combat crime. 3. The role of grief. Grief is a central theme in Bruce's narrative. The loss of his parents not only shapes his motivations but also complicates his emotional development. His grief becomes a driving force behind his quest for justice. The complexity of Bruce's grief is evident in his relationships. He often projects his loss onto others, leading to a fear of forming close attachments. The psychological concept of complicated grief can be applied here, as Bruce struggles to reconcile his feelings of anger and sadness with his desire for revenge. Discussion of PTSD and its symptoms in relation to Batman. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health condition triggered by experiencing or witnessing a traumatic event. Bruce Wayne's experience exemplifies many symptoms associated with PTSD, impacting his identity and behaviors as Batman. 1. Symptoms of PTSD. Intrusive thoughts. Bruce frequently revisits the traumatic memory of his parents' murder. This obsessive rumination can lead to heightened emotional distress and anxiety. Avoidance. Bruce attempts to avoid reminders of his trauma, which manifests in his obsessive focus on crime fighting as a means of escape. This avoidance can be maladaptive, as it prevents him from confronting his emotions directly. Negative changes in mood. Bruce often exhibits feelings of hopelessness, guilt, and emotional detachment. His inability to process his grief contributes to a pervasive sense of isolation. Hyperarousal. As Batman, Bruce exhibits hypervigilance, constantly on alert for danger. This heightened state of arousal reflects his struggle to maintain control in a world he perceives as chaotic and threatening. 2. Coping with trauma. The development of Batman can be seen as a coping mechanism. Bruce channels his trauma into a singular purpose: fighting crime. While this provides him with a sense of control, it also perpetuates his trauma, as he remains entrenched in violence and conflict. Bruce's PTSD manifests not only in his vigilantism but also in his interactions with others. He struggles to maintain relationships, often pushing people away out of fear of loss and vulnerability. 3. The role of therapy. In various storylines, there are references to Bruce seeking therapy or engaging in self-reflection, highlighting the importance of addressing trauma. However, his reluctance to fully confront his past often leads to repetitive cycles of behavior that exacerbate his psychological struggles. 2.2 Formation of identity. Exploration of how trauma shapes Bruce Wayne's identity as Batman. The trauma of losing his parents is not just a backdrop, it fundamentally shapes Bruce Wayne's identity, driving him to adopt the persona of Batman. This transformation represents an intricate interplay of pain, power, and purpose. 1. The emergence of Batman. Bruce's decision to become Batman is rooted in a desire to exert control over his environment, something he lacked as a child. By becoming a vigilante, he transforms from a victim into a protector, reclaiming agency over his life and the lives of others. The act of donning the Bat costume symbolizes both empowerment and escapism. Batman becomes a facade through which Bruce can express his anger and grief while also distancing himself from the vulnerable child he once was. 2. The concept of the masked self. The masked self represents the dichotomy between Bruce Wayne and Batman. While Bruce embodies the traits of wealth, privilege, and playboy persona, Batman embodies strength, resilience, and a relentless pursuit of justice. Psychologically, this duality allows Bruce to compartmentalize his trauma. As Batman, he can confront his fears and pain without fully acknowledging the emotional turmoil associated with his past. 3. Identity conflicts. The conflict between Bruce Wayne and Batman creates tension within Bruce's identity. He oscillates between his public persona and his vigilante role, struggling to integrate these aspects of himself. The idea of role conflict arises here, as Bruce grapples with societal expectations associated with being a wealthy businessman while simultaneously engaging in acts of vigilantism. This conflict complicates his ability to form meaningful connections with others, often leading to feelings of isolation. The psychological implications of the masked self. 1. Repression and projection. Bruce's use of the Bat persona allows him to repress the vulnerability associated with his past. He projects his fears and anger onto criminals, fighting against the very embodiment of his childhood trauma. This projection can be viewed through a psychological lens, where Bruce externalizes his internal struggles, thereby allowing him to distance himself from his emotional pain. 2. The need for control. The dual identity serves as a coping mechanism that provides Bruce with a sense of control over his life. As Batman, he can impose order on the chaos that traumatized him as a child. However, this need for control often leads to obsessive behaviors and a reluctance to accept help from others. Bruce's insistence on operating alone exemplifies the isolating effects of trauma. 3. Identity integration. The journey toward integrating Bruce Wayne and Batman is a central theme in many story arcs. Characters like Alfred and other allies often encourage Bruce to acknowledge his humanity beyond the mask, emphasizing the importance of vulnerability in healing. The psychological process of identity integration involves reconciling the past with the present, allowing Bruce to acknowledge his pain while also embracing the potential for growth and connection. 2.3 Coping mechanisms. Examination of Batman's coping strategies and maladaptive behaviors. 1. Obsessive vigilantism. Batman's primary coping mechanism is his relentless pursuit of crime fighting. While this gives him purpose, it also becomes a maladaptive behavior that isolates him from meaningful relationships and contributes to his emotional distress. This compulsive behavior mirrors aspects of obsessive-compulsive disorder (OCD), where individuals engage in repetitive actions to manage anxiety. For Batman, his nightly patrols serve as both an outlet for his pain and a means of avoiding deeper emotional issues. 2. Physical training and discipline. Batman channels his trauma into physical training, pushing his body to its limits. This aspect of his character exemplifies a coping strategy where physical exertion serves as a means of managing emotional pain. While discipline and training enhance his effectiveness as a vigilante, they also reflect a need to control his environment and emotions, often leading to an unhealthy fixation on perfection. 3. Detachment from emotions. Bruce often resorts to emotional detachment as a coping mechanism, burying his feelings to avoid vulnerability. This detachment creates barriers in his relationships, leading to loneliness and isolation. The concept of emotional numbing is relevant here. Bruce struggles to connect with others, fearing that intimacy will lead to further pain and loss. This fear inhibits his ability to seek help or form trusting relationships. Comparison with healthy coping mechanisms. One seeking support, unlike his tendency to operate independently, healthy coping mechanisms involve seeking support from others. In various narratives, characters like Alfred and Robin represent sources of emotional support that Bruce often underutilizes. Engaging in open communication about his feelings and experiences could foster healing and connection, allowing Bruce to process his trauma in a healthier manner. 2. Therapeutic interventions. Psychological interventions, such as therapy or counseling, could provide Bruce with tools to process his trauma constructively. Engaging with a mental health professional would allow him to explore his feelings in a safe environment. Characters like Harley Quinn, who undergoes therapy, highlight the potential for personal growth through therapeutic relationships, demonstrating that healing is possible even for those with complex traumas. 3. Mindfulness and emotional awareness. Practicing mindfulness and emotional awareness could serve as effective coping strategies for Batman. By cultivating awareness of his emotions, Bruce could learn to acknowledge his pain without being overwhelmed by it. Techniques such as meditation or reflective journaling could provide Bruce with insights into his emotional landscape, fostering resilience and emotional intelligence. In a conclusion, in this video we had an analysis of how trauma shapes Bruce Wayne's identity as Batman. So, till we meet in next video. Have a great day and bye-bye.